I'm Vince. It's my dad, Chris Hastings. We're here at the new Hot and Hot Fish Club in Birmingham, Alabama. We wish we could be in Biloxi with everybody. I hope everyone's doing safe with everything going on. And so just a quick background. This dish is what we've been cooking for 25, 30 years as a family. It's definitely our go-to home-cooked meal for my dad. So when I'm not eating Wendy's, this is what I eat. So I got to switch it up every now and then.
This is one of the classic recipes from our cookbook. What I prepare for my family, oftentimes when we're at home on our days off. So it's a very basic recipe. It starts with we've got collard greens, golden beets. This is heirloom carrots, white, yellow, garlic, mushroom. What I typically will do is I'll take just a nice handful of the collard greens and kind of just stack it up in the middle. And at this point, I'll spoon a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on top. Hit it with a little salt and pepper. And then at this point, just start putting the vegetables together. So a lot of times, especially when you've got beautiful, fresh vegetables, whether they're organic or from the grocery store or from your farmer's market locally, a lot of these root vegetables that we have here, I like to roast with the skin on. Some I will, some I will not. In the case of the beets, I really do like to roast these beets with the skin on. Now, of course, it's important that you wash the beets really well because they're obviously grown in the dirt and you want to clean them. But the nutrients on the skin, as well as the added flavor, I enjoy a lot. So as a rule, I try to do 4 pieces. Let's say, okay, so we've got a chicken for 4, family meal. I'll take each one of these vegetables and make sure there's 4 pieces of each one of the different vegetables that we're doing, so that once you take it out of the oven and start, doling it out to the family, everybody gets a little bite of everything. I don't know if you can see these, but these are really cool. This is a purple sweet potato. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of a new addition to the grocery store scene. The chef community has been seeing these for a long time, and they're super delicious and one of my favorites of all time. We've got the carrots, a variety of different carrots, like I said, nice heirloom carrots. Great thing about this dish is you can really put it together in 30 minutes or less. Even if you do the chicken in advance, which we'll go over in a little bit, you can do that the day before, and then really it's just about preparing your vegetables, and that's it. It's throw it in the pan and then roast it. So it's very quick, very easy, and like I said, super delicious. This is a parsnip. I'm not sure if all of y'all can see that. It looks kind of like a carrot. Smells kind of like a carrot. Sweet, really beautiful. It's kind of an underappreciated root vegetable, and they're actually pretty common in the grocery stores these days. And I treat it exactly like a carrot. I'll cut it and roast it in a very similar manner. If you're like me, I love turnips and rutabagas and all these different root vegetables. This happens to be a turnip, and again, you can find them pretty much anywhere. That's the beautiful thing about this dish. Not to mention the fact that all together, if you're feeding a family of 4, you can do this entire dish for $16, $17 and have not only one meal, but you'll have several meals. What I'll typically do once we're done with the chicken and the family's eaten everything, I'll take the remainder of the carcass and any leftover meat and pick all the meat off the carcass, and then at that point take the carcass that's left over and make a stock. I would say use some vegetable stock or some chicken stock from the grocery store, unless you make your own, and then just simmer those bones with some vegetables, and you make a really nice broth. And then any leftover vegetables you have, you would just add it the next day to that chicken soup, along with the leftover chicken. And so you really get 2 bites of the apple, as it were, on this particular dish. So we're down the home stretch here on putting it together. Got a few onions on top. Also, I don't know if y'all can see this, but this is a head of garlic, right? I took some of the what we call the paper of the garlic off, so just expose the cloves, right? And then I like to put these in underneath the chicken, kind of right in the middle. And the beautiful thing about this is the chicken will sit on top and it'll roast on top. When you remove the chicken from the pan, these little cloves of garlic will be wonderfully just cooked all the way through, super tender, super sweet. It's almost like garlic butter. It's one of my favorite things as a part of this particular dish. So you may wonder, what is this? This is kind of an important part of the chicken process. Of course, all of you know to get your chickens home and then wash it. I like to do, wash it thoroughly, get all of the giblets that are in there, get them out, wash it real good. And then what I'll do is I will stuff the cavity. I don't know if you can see this, but this is essentially just paper towels and then wrap it in the chicken in this case, it would be a kitchen towel. Okay, now, why is that important? It's very important that chicken be dry because the skin and the meat, when you're going to prepare it, needs to be dry. It just makes for a crispier skin and a better outcome if the skin and the inside of the cavity are dry and clean. Okay, so next step is we'll take a little salt and pepper and season the cavity. And then fresh thyme. You can find the fresh thyme all over the market. Years ago it was hard to find fresh vegetables at the grocery stores, but now it's available all the time and you can get it. I like to crush it to where I can really get the aromatics working on the thyme and just kind of get it inside the cavity. Little tip also too, if you have leftover thyme, I keep it at my house in a glass just like this and let it dry, just air dry to where it's you can use it a week later, 2 weeks later to make a vinaigrette, or use it with your chicken dish the next time, or whatever. Thyme's probably my favorite just general purpose herb. It's fantastic for all kinds of things. So if you keep the thyme in those little plastic containers in your fridge, oftentimes they'll hold moisture and they'll turn black. You've probably, for those of you who cook, fog time and held time, that happens. This is a much better way to hold it and utilize it, completely instead of throwing it away. All right, now next little trick. So if you've never trussed a chicken before with butcher's twine, there you will, and you don't have butcher's twine at home, this is what I like to do at the house. It's very important when you're roasting a chicken or any whole animal is you have to truss it with a string or pull it together. And the way you're going to do that, because you want it even, you want it tight, because if let's say during the cooking process it wasn't trussed, what will happen is it'll naturally spring out and splay out, and what ends up happening there is you end up with it not cooking very evenly. It's very important to have even transfer of heat. Another super important part of this process is this chicken must sit out a minimum of an hour, just on a plate, on your, in your kitchen, to come to room temperature. Because you think about the heavy bones that are in the backbone here, and of course then by the legs and the thighs. If you took this out of the refrigerator and stuffed it with the herbs and seasoned it and then tied it and put it directly in the oven, you're going to have way too much cool temperatures by the bone. And for you to get the legs and thighs cooked properly by the backbone, you're going to likely overcook the breast. So again, room temperature, even transfer of heat is the best way to go. Now back to the kind of the the trussing of the chicken, which would be the tying of the chicken, in the absence of twine. Okay, so I'm just going to take my little knife, and I'm going to cut a hole right there, just below the breast here. There's that loose skin that you see. And I'm just going to tuck it in like that. And what you'll find is in the roasting process, you can see how that kind of is all kind of held together. It'll hold it like that throughout the cooking process. You may not have noticed, but I tucked, instead of having the wings out like this, I'll just tuck them under, and then we're pretty much ready to go. I'm going to take a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, or you could just do regular olive oil. Either way is fine. Season with a little salt and pepper. All right, now, one thing we haven't done yet is season the vegetables. A little salt and pepper on that. We're going to hit it at this point. All the veggies, a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. I don't know if y'all can see that, but that's a really beautiful image there. All those vegetables all together. By the way, I'm going to talk a little bit about this pan in a second. But the only thing left to do at this point is take about half a cup of chicken stock. You can find really good quality chicken stocks in the grocery store. You can make your own chicken stock at home if you're adventurous. It's a very simple process. But what I want to do is I want to put about half to 3/4 of a cup of chicken stock in the bottom of this pan. And then on top goes the chicken. And then we're ready to go into the oven. So you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Again, room temperature, super important. Pop your chicken in the oven and cook it for an hour. When the chicken comes out of the oven, it'll be golden brown and perfect. Let it rest. The resting process is important because if, let's say, you just pulled it out of the oven and went to cutting it, what will happen is because it's still so hot, the juices are literally flowing around in that chicken right out of the oven. When you let anything, a steak, a chicken, a piece of fish, whatever, anything, it's really important we do this every single time we serve it, anything in a restaurant or at home, we let it rest for a minute. What happens is it goes from being piping hot down to warm, and all the moisture and all the juices that would normally just flow out of that chicken if it were cut directly out of the oven, it will, instead of that happening because you've allowed it to rest, what ends up happening is the juices are held within the legs, the thighs, the breast, and the meat. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a steak, like I said, or fish, or chicken, whatever. Resting is one of those kind of just really important kind of basic tricks that we use all the time, every day in the restaurant business. So I want to talk a little bit about this pan. So I've had a great relationship with the All-Clad company. They're a finest manufacturer of pots and pans, and we use them. I don't know if you can see in the back of the restaurant. We've got a ton of them back here where we really love these. And this is a new D4. It's called a weeknight pan, and it's designed for cooking, whether it be at home with serving your family, or maybe you have guests, or maybe you're doing some sort of home gating, or just having some fun. And you want a pan big enough to cook for a group. This is a 4-quart pan, and it's super versatile. You can braise in it, you can roast in it, you can make sauces in it. It's just a fantastic a piece of equipment, and I'm a giant fan. Everybody always asks me, okay, what's your favorite pan and why? 2 pans, All-Clad and then cast iron. Having grown up in the South, cast iron has just been part of my life. Everybody should have cast iron, and if you're going to spend money on on really good cookware, all clad it'll be like cast iron. It'll go down past to the next generation. It's really good quality pot and pan. Eventually, put that in the oven for me. Can you handle that? All right.
Hey, Chef,
Now,
while you're putting that in the oven, I had a question for you. Come in the chat.
fire away.
One of the questions was, do you cook the chicken covered or uncovered?
Uncovered. Now, you can cover it, but what you'll have to do is, let's say if you do cover it, you're gonna have to uncover it in the last, say, 20 minutes or 15 minutes of cooking, and maybe turn on your broiler to get some color on the skin and crisp up the skin, because naturally if you were to cover that, there's gonna be a lot of steam and moisture that won't escape, and therefore it won't brown like you would in an oven where the lid off. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yes. And as far as when you pull it out of the oven, do you rest it on the pan that it's in, or do you put it on a room temperature cutting board? What's the best practice there?
I like to keep it in the pan that it's in. I'll tell you why. Because once I go to cut it, I want whatever juice comes off of that chicken. It won't be a ton of it, but when you go to cut that chicken and divide it up and plate it for your family or friends, whatever, some of the juices are going to flow into the pan where the vegetables are. You want to capture all that wonderful flavor of that roasted chicken into the pan.
Awesome. And maybe the most important question with this dish, Melissa wants to know, what wine would we best be served with this chicken?
Well, wine is like anything else. It's a very subjective question about whether you prefer red or you prefer white. You prefer, let's say, a bigger red wine that maybe was a Cabernet versus a Pinot Noir, or maybe you like a really, kind of an American Chardonnay that's very buttery and big, or you maybe prefer a Burgundy white wine that is much crisper and much more complex. It's subjective. Me, I like a French Pinot Noir or a Rhone wine. Rhones are probably my all-time favorite go-to red wine, just generally speaking, because I love the richness of those wines. There's a term used oftentimes with Rhone wines. They're very earthy and they have an animal quality, and that animal quality is the smell of roasted meat and blood. And that sounds a little kind of weird and maybe gruesome, but it has this real animal quality along with the earthiness and of like mushrooms and just really the earth. And it's one of my all-time favorite wines, whether it's Chateauneuf du Pape or any number of Rhone wines. So
awesome. Thank you.
let's take a look at the final product. All right. So essentially, I don't know if everybody can see that. Now you notice again back to we popped the hole in the leg and the skin, tucked the leg in there, and see how it held together. The legs are not splayed out like that. It's really it's a very, very important part of having a really moist bird. Now we've let this chicken rest for a good 20 minutes. I'll just take a half of it apart. All right. So at this point, I'm going to pull out some of the different vegetables and things. Nice thing about this dish also is that all of these ingredients are available year round. So it's not like you have to kind of change this up seasonally. It's not necessary because these ingredients are all available. Now, probably what Vince would tell you, the best part about this particular dish is all of the juice that's left at the bottom of the pan from the roasting of the chicken, and get yourself a little bit of crispy French bread and a little Rhone wine, or in Vince's case, a Coca-Cola, and have dinner and enjoy it with your friends and family. That's the final product right there. So everybody get a good look at that. Any other questions?
Let's see. Yes, I mean, feel free for those here on, if you'd like to take yourself off mute and certainly ask a question. I know Chef certainly said that there's nothing that's off limits as far as what you may ask. So feel free to fire away.
I have a question.
Fire away, Mary.
What is Vince's favorite thing that you cook? His favorite meal. Vince, this is for you, really.
Vince, what's your favorite thing?
Such limited options.
Ha.
I would say he does a seared tuna. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So it's seared tuna with avocados, eggplants, tomatoes, peppers, bell peppers,
and hot peppers.
Hot peppers.
Lots of basil.
Lots of basil.
Lime
What's
juice.
the juice you do?
Lime juice and lemon juice.
To me, that's probably the best. Just all of this together on one dish. And I'm a big fish fan. Tuna is my favorite. So to me, that's the best. This dish is the most common that we've used over the years, and it's great. But the one recently that's taken over is the tuna dish or the Vinny burger.
Oh, yeah.
That's a story for another time.
Yeah, that's another demo.
We won't bring that up, but that's
well, the nice thing about the tuna dish that Vince is talking about is super healthy. Vince will go through periods of time where he's eating really healthy, and there's times when he's maybe kind of not as focused. And the tuna was a dish that we've done in the restaurant quite a bit. And then I wanted to show Vince how to do it because it's something he can cook at home very, very easily, very simply. And, good quality tuna, cooked rare, all those wonderful fresh ingredients at room temperature all together. It is super delicious. Thanks for the question, Mary.
So you taught Vince how to prepare that meal?
Yes, he knows how to do it. He says he does, but he does.
So
you should have him cook dinner for you.
That's what I was just getting at. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. He'll call me if he needs.
Okay.
Yep, Chef. Been working with Vince since November now, and I'm sure he's a better cook than he lets on. But I guess I was kind of. He says he is always just fixing sandwiches for lunch and dinner. But what's the trickiest thing you've seen him make?
Trickiest thing I've seen Vincent cook?
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably the tuna dish, not because it's terribly complicated. You've got to cook the onions and the peppers and the sliced tomatoes and the eggplant kind of all separately, and they all require a little bit more kind of just understanding of cooking. And then the very most important part is getting good quality tuna and not overcooking it. I mean, we're fans of tuna cooked on the rare side of rare, and so depending on how every individual likes their own tuna, but about really high quality tuna, you got to be able to cook that correctly. And maybe that's the next demo we do, Stephen. If this thing takes off, is me and Vinny will do a tag team demo where we're doing one of his favorite dishes. It's a great dish, a good summertime dish too. Or I'll just send you the recipe.
I'm sure this group would gladly take any recipe you're willing to offer.
That one's in the cookbook as well.
And with that, go ahead, Mandy.
I have a question. Well, thank you, Chef, for doing this. This is so awesome. But was curious, you had mentioned briefly extra virgin olive oil versus regular olive oil, all those, I mean, there's dark, there's light, there's all these different oils. Is there just a general rule of thumb on when to use one over the other, or is it just kind of a preference?
Well, let's go through it. I'll be quick about it. There's a couple things. One is extra virgin olive oil is the first press. Okay, so it's very delicate. It's very flavorful. It has a very low smoke point, meaning it really doesn't do well when you heat it. It'll break down very quickly. It'll lose all of those delicate flavors. Extra virgin olive oil also has a very wide range of flavor profiles, from high pH and bitter to flinty or stony or almost herbaceous. And so kind of the rule of thumb when you're going to buy extra virgin olive oil and you want to try a new one, get it in a smaller container. And then once you get it home, get some French bread or some sort of crusty bread. Get your hands clean, not too soapy, but clean. Put a little drop of the extra virgin olive oil on your hand. Maybe you're not going to drop a little bit more than that. And then rub it together like that. And your hands the friction from your hands will heat that oil up, and you cup it, almost like a wine glass, okay? And then when you smell the aromas of that particular olive oil, and again, it could be herbaceous, it could be flinty and stony, it could be even a little bit floral, depending on what was going on around the olive orchards at the time, and of course the quality of the soil and the type of soil. And then the last piece of that, because that gives you the aroma, and the next piece is to take that crusty bread and no salt or anything, just olive oil in the bread, and then taste it. You'll see at that point, is it overly bitter, or is it nice and it has a little bit of acidity to it, but more importantly, it's got a nice buttery flavor in your mouth, and then all those other notes that you were able to pick up from your smelling it in your hands. And then you got to decide, do you like it or not? And if you do, then that's how you taste olive oil. That's how the professionals taste olive oil and determine, the flavor profiles and whatnot. And as far as regular olive oil goes, that's just a second pressing. It could be it's either a heat method or a chemical method to extract more oil out of those seeds and the fruit. And it's a more mild. It has a much higher smoke point. It's much more versatile in terms of using around heat, and it's certainly more flavorful than, say, sunflower oil or grapeseed oil or canola oil. And the two oils I use in my kitchen are, well, three: pecan oil, extra virgin olive oil, and just regular olive oil. Those are the three go-to oils I really like. Good question.
Thank you.
Well, Chef, I know I have Chef Austin on here as well. For those who don't know, Austin obviously was going to be the host restaurant of Chip and Chop there at White Pillars. Would love to have you provide some insight into y'all's relationship and kind of how it is transformed to what it is today.
Who goes first, me or Austin?
You first, Chef.
All right, so I had the good fortune of Austin showing up, gosh, how many years ago was it, Austin? 5 years ago? 6 years ago?
Oh, 8 years ago.
8 years ago?
8 years ago.
And Austin came from Oxford, Mississippi, where he'd been working with John Currents. Had a great background, learned a lot about good cooking with John. He came to work for us. He was gifted, great palate, great technique, hard-working, really, really working chef, classic, well-trained working chef. But Austin, to his credit, was a sponge for knowledge and wanted to take his game to the next level. He wanted to one day own his own restaurant. So he said, "Look, Chef, I'd like to be more than a line cook. I'd like to one day be the sous chef or the chef de cuisine of the restaurant." I said, "Okay, great." And so, we started working through that process. And I'll let Austin talk more about that process. But what I will tell you is he's one of those gifted chefs that has ever come through my kitchen. He's got a tremendous palate, and everybody on the planet needs to go to White Pillars and taste his food. I've eaten there a bunch with my family, and I love your restaurant, Austin. You should be very proud.
Thanks, Chef.
My wife and I, and everybody you work with, during that time period. I'm very proud of you.
Appreciate it, Chef. Yeah, I just kind of picking up where you left off. Just from my side, my experience, it was a whole lot more than just a culinary education. I mean, I learned a ton about food and really more about, almost how to approach food and how to treat food. But also, Chef Hastings kind of brought me under his wing and taught me how to run a restaurant too. So I definitely couldn't have done what we did here without what I learned there. And it honestly, it made me feel comfortable enough to even try it. I'll be forever in your debt in that regard, Chef. But it's I've kind of liked where our relationship has gone even since then, though. I like to think that we've become good friends, and doing this event was something that we were, I think, both really looking forward to because it's fun. It's fun to get back together and cook again, together and in the same kitchen, all that kind of stuff. And it's you don't come across people with passion for food and locality and seasonality and stuff like that you and I have very often. So it's always cool to nerd out about food every now and then with somebody, and it's fun to do that with you. And I hope that we'll be able to get this back online and do this event again eventually. I mean, I'm sure we'll do something. We'll put that up to Stephen and Vince, but I bet they'll figure it out.
Well, thanks for that, Austin. I really look forward to, always look forward to getting together with you and your team and hanging out in the kitchen, cooking, great food.
I got the team right here. Hey, team, say hey.
Hey, what's up?
Go Tigers! Go Tigers!
Oh, come on now. Somebody holler and go Tigers.
Awesome. That was nice, Austin. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a nice little surprise.
Yeah.
Good boys.
How'd the chicken come out?
Terrible. I wouldn't eat it.
Terrible.
It's perfect. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take it home and have dinner. It's going to be dinner.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hey, good luck with the reopen, Austin.
Thanks, Jeff.
You and I need to compare notes. We start on the 2nd of June, and so I'll give you a shout sometime here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to hear more about your perspective on trying to get open.
For sure. Always good to talk to you, Chef. I'm going to try to go get some work done.
Good luck.
Well, thank you, Austin. Chef, I've done a little bit of research, and so I know a story always kind of trails you, so to speak. Vince has told it, but I think maybe you may do it a little bit more justice to the group. But as the story goes, something about Iron Chef and Bobby Flay and some competition. And so was curious to see if you can enlighten the group a little bit about what that means to you.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool experience, actually. So in the culinary universe, the Holy Grail is the James Beard Award for whatever, whether it's, best chef in the South or, whatever. There's a bunch of different things. But, with the advent of cooking shows and blown up on Food Network and whatnot, Iron Chef America was probably, in my mind, the only legitimate cooking show, because most of them are a little too cheeky and gotcha-ish. But the original show came out of Japan, and I used to watch it when it was subtitled, and I always admired the whole thing. And then when we get a call one day from Iron Chef America folks, and they said, "Hey, would you like to compete?" And I said, "Absolutely." And then you kind of be careful what you wish for, kind of thing, because you realize that, okay, you're about to take on this challenge, and 1 million people will watch it every time it's on air, and it will be on a loop for the rest of your ever. Okay, and you can melt in those moments, because when those bright lights come on, and you're standing there or they're about to come on, and you're standing in the hallway with Bobby Flay and his team, Alton Brown and Kevin, the judges, and our team, and they go 2 minutes. You better have practiced. You better have your act together. You better damn sure know what you're doing, because the pressure and the at that moment my head could have exploded. But it was interesting. It was like an athletic event. You hear when athletes talk about being in the zone and the game slows down. I turned to my guys and I said, "Hey, y'all ready? You ready to do this? And they both looked me in the eye and they said, we got this, chef. We went out there, and if for any of you who have seen the show, Chef Flay had a particularly kind of bumpy day, but we were totally in the zone, totally zen, just kind of going down our process, and it was a great show. It came out exceptionally well. We brought everything from Alabama. We designed our own plates. We had them shipped up for the show, and we brought our own moonshine from Elmore County, and that the moonshine might have kind of carried us over the top. It was, I think, particularly one judge, Anthony from Blackish, I forget his last name. He got into the hoops pretty good, and he was pulling Team Hastings and Team Hot across the finish line. So it was a really cool experience. And it's funny, people will stop me way more and say, "Man, that was a great job with Flay, stomping him into a mud hole." I get more comments about that than I do about the Beard Award by a factor of 10. So it's interesting how professionally James Beard was super important, but for the general public, the Iron Chef America thing and stomping Bobby Flay was huge. And it's still running to this day. People will call me and say, "Hey, you're on Iron Chef. You might want to watch the show." I'm like, yeah, I've seen it. So it was cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. I will put the word out to everyone else. If there's any further questions, please feel free to jump ahead. But maybe in the meantime, Chef, I just want to give you a minute. I know you have a cookbook next to you. Wanted to just give you a second to touch on that and where people can get it.
Sure. So you can, probably the best way to get it is on Amazon. It's, I believe, $25. We produced it in 2012. It's a collection of several hundred recipes that range from very chefy to much more simple home cooking. We designed this cookbook to be as comfortable on your nightstand as a read, and really good cookbooks do that exceptionally well, where you can read the stories and find out the backstory behind dishes and the history of dishes, and whether it's family or just Southern cooking history. And then it's equally as comfortable in your kitchen. Yes, there are some things in here that you don't want to attempt because it's a forced march, like the tomato salad. But there are lots and lots of other things that are super manageable for cooking for yourself, or your family, or friends. And we're super excited about it. So who's the lucky person who gets the cookbooks, Stephen? Did we pick someone out yet?
I think we did. I got a random drawing, and Marcia Crawford has won a signed cookbook from Chef Hastings. So we will connect with you, Marcia, but congratulations.
Wherever Marcia is, enjoy the cookbook. Stephen's going to send me an address. I'll personalize the cookbook to you, and anybody else that's significant in your life. Just tell Stephen who that may be, and I'll personalize the cookbook to you and your significant others, and we'll get it mailed off. And one of the things I always tell everybody, if you have any questions, you can find me on Instagram. You can send me a text message at my mobile phone. I'll answer any questions you may have about the cooking processes in the cookbook if you get hung up, or where to source something or whatever. I'm available for any questions. So that goes for all of you anytime, whether you're in the cookbook or not. So hope you've enjoyed today. I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and I really look forward to getting back down to Biloxi and getting the tournament teed up, Rapiscan Classic next year, and cooking with Austin and seeing everybody, and getting back to regular business.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Chef, on behalf of our team and everybody here. Again, thank you all for joining us. And I will say, let me make sure I plug. Please go follow Hot and Hot Fish Club and Ovenbird. And Chef Hastings also has his own personal social media account, so feel free to dive into those. And once our restrictions are behind us, please feel free to reach out. And if you're ever in Birmingham, I know he'd love to see you and meet you in person and treat you to a meal there. So please be sure to check out those restaurants if you ever venture north up into Birmingham.
Yeah, if you say you're from Rapiscan, you get to eat for free.